Derby County v Chelsea, 1983. The 1980s were arguably the worst times for football hooliganism. Gone were the non-segregation and no police escorts that had been commonplace in the 70s. But the 80s signaled a new era of organised firms such as the ICF, intercity firm of West Ham, the Millwall Bushwhackers and the Chelsea Headhunters, where they were more like armies than hooligan firms. In this match, Chelsea Headhunters head to the baseball ground and clash head-on with Derby County's Lunatic Fringe hooligans. In their previous home match, Derby v Leeds, Leeds fans had rioted the whole match, ripping seats out and throwing them onto the pitch and at the police. This made national news, so all eyes were on this match against notorious Chelsea Headhunters. What could possibly go wrong? Chelsea Headhunters member Andy told us, "There are videos on this match on YouTube, but they don't show the madness and the comedy of the time. We were playing Derby at the old baseball ground, and we went on the organised special train up to Derby. The Midlands games were always a great day out, and always guaranteed a big travelling firm and plenty of punch-ups and rioting around the grounds. When the train pulled into Derby station, we realised by the amount of plod around that they were intent on herding us all up straight into the ground. We got off and quickly dived into the buffet on the platform, sat down and watched as all the other Chelsea were rounded up and snaked up to the ground. When the platform was clear, we casually walked out of the station and found a pub. A couple of pints was followed by a couple of scuffles as we made our way up to the ground. The baseball ground was probably one of the most depressing grounds around. Outside, it all seemed to be clad in rusty corrugated steel sheets, painted blue for some reason. The walk from Derby railway station to the baseball ground was a long 25-minute walk through the streets of Derby. It was always a little menacing, and you felt like it could kick off. But it never did, apart from our few scuffles. Inside the stands sat at an odd angle to the pitch. We stood along the side, and around the ground there was plenty of fighting and loads of pushing and shoving, and it got overcrowded very quickly. You know that feeling that this could go wrong, sort of crowded. At this point it is important to tell quickly of a game a week earlier on 22nd Jan 1983. When Leeds fans ripped out 400 seats and threw them onto the pitch, it looks like the Leeds fans had a really good riot that day. So in the ground, there was sporadic fighting throughout as Chelsea fans were all around the ground. The side stand terracing we were in was full, and somehow we also had a 3-tier stand behind the goal. 2 tiers of seating that seemed full, and a terracing below that wasn't as full. All in all, I would say 5,000 Chelsea there that day. The match was 1-0 to Derby at half-time, and was just going a bit messy, and Chelsea were not really doing well. But as was the case in those days, we never stopped singing. Then in the 80th minute, Mike Fillery scored and we erupted. The feeling was so good it didn't calm down for minutes. Then in the 89th minute, Kevin Wilson scored for Derby, and that just sent the Chelsea fans crazy, fights everywhere, and both sets of fans trying to get over the fence and onto the pitch. Hundreds of police were deployed, presumably from outside the stadium. Behind the goal, there was a chant of, "Anything Leeds can do, we can do better. We can do anything better than Leeds." And we did. Most of the stand was ripped out. I guess that was the comedy moment. And the sad part was, the seats were thrown down, hitting our own supporters. And that's the madness of it all. The game made the TV reports, and there was a big reaction to it. I can't remember if that was just a fine for Chelsea or the catalyst that started the away games ban. Ah, the ban. Now that's a story for another day. I look forward to telling it as we went away anyway, ban or not. Ending in a match at Watford when there were so many banned Chelsea fans, we took the whole ground. Well, almost. Remember, you can't ban a Chelsea fan. As we were escorted back to the station, some plod kept saying over and over, "You're not hooligans, just bad losers." Knob. No trouble after the match due to a huge police escort, and no Derby would be mad enough to try anything anyway. Don't blame them one bit. By coincidence, the following week we were at home to Derby in the league. A pathetic 8,761 of us watched a 3-1 defeat. They bought 50 fans, I kid you not. I never rated Derby as a firm, not ever. I know some do, but I just never saw it. Derby Lunatic Fringe member Carl told us, "I was in the Aussie end for the Leeds riot, truly terrifying, non-stop fighting, seat throwing all game. And I think it was reopened after being a family seating area for the first time that day. Closed after for the rest of the season. I was there on the Popside for Chelsea with our mob from the Aussie Park and made our way from the back to the front and were amongst the first to try and get over the fence. Chelsea also tried several times to get over the fence but were beaten back by the coppers. Eventually it all settled down, but then we scored the winner and that was it. They went mental, tried to invade the pitch again. A few did manage to, but were rounded up by the police. We had a cracking view of their seat-smashing tantrums, but as they were throwing the seats, they were hitting their own fans in the lower tier. Coppers tried to stop them but were getting pelted with the seats and had to retreat and let the Chelsea lot carry on. By the time they had finished, hardly any seats left. Looked a right mess, and with all these seats on the pitch, trying to outdo the Leeds lot, of course. After the match, they were escorted back to the station and coaches. We tried to take them on, but so many coppers. I suppose they didn't want a repeat of the previous game against Leeds. They did evade a full-scale riot, but there was still lots of trouble, mainly by Chelsea, of course. The following week, we were at Chelsea in the league, and I went with about 50 hardy Rams. I think the atmosphere can best be described as brooding and tense. We kept our heads down and never spoke. One of the nastiest places I ever visited, along with the usual suspects, West Ham, Millwall, Cardiff, Birmingham, etc., etc. All evil feckers who would slash your throat without worries. Chelsea Headhunters were everywhere looking for Derby's firm, but the Lunatic Fringe weren't that loony, were they now? Great days? Not sure about that at all. Anyway, our little cup run and the subsequent great escape from relegation under Peter Taylor and Roy Mack felt like we were on the way back, only for it all to go massively pear-shaped the following season, when we got relegated. So not sure about the great days. Memorable, yes, but great, not so much. We thank Andy and Carl for their recollections. It's clear that Chelsea did riot that day, but to be fair, it sounds like an easy day out for the boys in blue. The fighting in the terraces appears sporadic, and after the recollections of our friends, it appears it was more of a riot against the police than the Derby fans. Derby's baseball ground could be an awkward visit for many firms, but perhaps Chelsea were just too tougher an opponent on this occasion. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps our channel grow.